Hi everyone, so we're going to be making a page just like this where when someone lands on the page it's going to just pop in the text, and then you can see here we got this constantly rotating colors on this link for about page, and as we scroll down we will see this in view that just shows up that content. So as we keep scrolling and we get in view of that content, then it will show up only when we actually want to see it. And if we click on the About page, it's the same thing. It's going to just show up as we scroll down or up. And right here we still have that colors rotating. And then here we can have a button that will hide and show certain elements. And if we click hide, you can see how it just nicely moved down. And if we click show, you can see that it actually moves up nicely. So if you keep going back and forth, you can see a little animation between it. And go back to the home page, you can see we got the text zooming up and ready for us to read. So this is what we are going to be doing in this video. We're going to be looking at quite a few different animation and hooks to help us with this. First off, I'm going to open up a brand new window and I'm going to start a brand new project. So I will just open up a terminal and navigate to my desktop. And then I'll just create a brand new project. And I'll call this Framer Motion in I'll say in view or something like that. You can call anything you like. And we're going to start creating the code here. And if there's anything that pops up, you can say no to TypeScript, no ESLint, and no to everything else. And here, import alias, don't change anything, just hit enter. And once it's done, we're just going to drag and drop this folder into Visual Studio. And we got our default template here. I'm just going to go to the index.js. And I'm going to remove everything in between the main so we just have a starter template. There we go. I'm going to save that. Another thing that I will be doing is I'll go into Styles, Global. I'm going to delete everything in here. I don't want the CSS stuff. And here I'm just going to keep a few things. So actually I'm just going to keep the main. Everything else I'll delete. So there we go. We just have the main. Save that. Save this. And we should just have a boilerplate template that looks just like this. Now we need to actually install a few things, and we need to set up a few items on our page. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually install this command. I'll just delete some stuff from the README file. And I'll just say installations. So we're going to install Framer Motion. And we're also going to install something called React Intersection Observer. So this is going to actually help us use the in-view hook, and then we'll able to, based on if it's in our view when we are scrolling, we'll be able to animate that certain area. And I'll just leave the link as well in the README file if you want to take a look at Framer Motion. So we're going to be using this link right here. We're going to install Framer Motion, but also we're going to use this Framer Motion documentation. Same thing as before. If you haven't seen the previous video, we're going to use this motion.div or whatever tag we want to use to animate it. And let's get started here. I'm going to first install what we need to install. Terminal, new terminal. If we go to our package.json, you can see we just have these basic commands right now. I'm just going to install Framer Motion first. And you'll be able to see Framer Motion gets added to our dependencies. Then we're going to add the intersection observer. And we should see this intersection observer now in our package.json as well. So we are all set up with our dependencies. We are ready to start coding now. Here in our index, we are going to have to add a few things. First thing we're going to do at the top here is I'm going to import motion from Framer Motion. And I'm going to use the link tag in here. So I'll import link from next link. And I will just save that for right now. And what we want to do, I'll change the title here, I guess, to Framer Motion and Intersection Observer. So we'll save that. And what we want to do here is we want to add our link tag first. And this link tag, it's going to go to the About page. So let's actually set up our About page as well while we're here. In our pages, we'll right-click New File, About.js. And right here, we're going to set up our page for this. And what I'll do is actually, I'll just copy this. I'll just put it in the About, and then just change this home to About right there. And it'll just be a lot faster for us. Next, we will want to, let's start off with our index page, because that will be the most important. But we do have a few components actually that we want to do. But let's first actually look at the link component here. And I want to animate this text. We're going to say About page. So whenever someone clicks on this, or just by looking at this link tag, we're going to animate or oscillate between different colors. And in order to do this, I'm going to put a span around this. So what I'll do is I'll just do motion.span. And I'll make sure this is wrapped around this text here. And what I'll do here is in between these angle brackets for motion.span, I'm going to add an animation. So animate is equal to the two curly brace brackets. I'm going to have a background color. And this background color will have an array of colors. And this array of colors will be something like this. So I'm just going to start changing between the three different colors. It's going to just go back and forth between all of these colors. But I need to add some sort of transition as well. So after these curly brace brackets, I will also add a transition. And I'll say duration is 2. Repeat, I will say infinity. If I do infinity, then it'll always keep oscillating between all the colors. And I'll say repeat type. I'll say reverse, so always keep reversing and going back and forth between all of these colors. It's going to rotate between them, and I will save that, and let's actually just test this out and see what it looks like. npm run dev. Okay, let us see what's happening in our code here. Oh, because we're on our about page, we forgot to put this on our actual index page. So what I could do is, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to change this to, I could just do / to go back to home for the about page. And what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to copy everything here, everything with the link. I'm going to copy it, and I'm just going to paste it here as well, replace it, and I'm just going to change this to about, and I'm going to save it. So this was going to say about page, and this one is going to say home page. So now we should be able to click on the link, and it'll go back and forth between the home and about page. And you can see right here the home page, we see it now oscillating between the three colors. It's a red, then transparent, then green, and then it goes backwards again. And it keeps rotating over and over and over again. And if we click on it, it's a link. So it should take us to the about page. And here it says home page, so it's going to link us back to the home page, and now it says about page. So you can see here how we can create this animation on the links as well. Next thing I want to do is I actually want to create a few components. So these components will be a box for the about page, and let me just double check here. So there's the box, and then there's also the paragraphs. Okay, so let's set this up. At our root, we're going to have a folder, and we're going to call it components. Okay, so I'm just going to create the components now. The first folder, I'll just make it box. And then the second folder, I'll make it paragraph. In the box, I'm going to have index.js, and in the paragraph, I'll have an index.js as well. And for a paragraph, I'm going to have a bunch of information. This is actually lorem ipsum, so it's nothing, but you can always just copy it from the GitHub repository from down below. I'm just going to paste it in. It's a bunch of text, and I'll just call it paragraph and return all this stuff with it's in between an article tag and a bunch of paragraph tags. This is just to help us fill up the space on our browser. And I will do the box afterwards, but first we're going to go back to our index.js. And okay, I see. So for the box, we actually do have to use it right away. So let's set up the box then. And in the box, I'm going to set up a few different things. I'm going to have to import a bunch of stuff. So let me just import everything. And I'm going to import the paragraph because I just want it to be reused here in this box that contains everything. And this box here, I'm just going to have a number value. And I'll just do a return for right now. I'm going to have a motion.div. And this is where things get really interesting. We're going to have to use this in view and stuff with the use effect. So what we'll do here is we will first set up everything in the motion div. I will have an h1, and it'll just say box, and then whatever number value is being passed through, that'll show right there. And I'm going to add the paragraph of text right below. So then it just fills up that space within this div. And what I'm going to be doing here is in between these angle brackets right here, this is where I'm going to add some property values. So I will be setting up a box variant shortly. I'll say hidden at first. And animate, I'll put it in the control. So what I want to do is right here, in between the export and return, we're going to set up the constant of box variant. So when it is visible, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the opacity So what I'm doing here is I'm just saying that opacity is 1, so when it's visible, I'll be able to see it. It'll scale in, it'll transition, it'll take 0.6 seconds that you'll see a nice fade-in effect for it to show up. And then after this, I'll make it hidden with opacity of 0. So when it's hidden, we don't want to see it at all, and it'll scale back down to 0. Now right here, we're going to have another constant for control, but this control will use the use animation. And then we'll also have another constant of ref, and then in view. I'll say use in view. So this use in view is going to be very important when we actually want to start the animation only when it comes into view of the actual browser of where the person is on or where the person has scrolled to. And in order to get started on this, we have to use a use effect. And this use effect is now saying if the in view has, let's say, a control dot start. When it starts, if it's in view, it will be visible because that's the variable we have here is visible. So based on whatever control for the animation, we will start it only when it is set to visible. Else, if it is not true, if in view is not true, then we're going to control dot start. We'll set it to hidden. But because use effect keeps rendering all the time, we don't want it to keep going over and over and over again. So we're only going to change it based on if the control and or in view changes. Then we are going to have to trigger this use effect to start running. And we're going to save it. And I think that should be everything. Let's actually just test it out and see what happens. Let me see, what page am I on again? Oh, it's because we haven't imported it at all in our index. So let's go back to our index.js. And right over here under our link tag, we're going to we're going to have to import this. Import box from that components box pathway. And then now we can use this box. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass over the num value of 1. And I'll just make a few so then it's scrollable. And I'll just make 6 of these. And change this each time to 2. Just increment these by 1 so then we can see it changing as we scroll down. Save it. And now it should be imported on our browser. Let's go here. So Boolean false, not iterable. So let's take a look. I may have missed something on this page. Box. Okay. So ref in view. Okay. So this one, use in view, is not from Framer Motion. This should be from React Intersection Observer, because this is what will actually detect if it has been showing up on the page or wherever the person's at. So save that, make sure you change this to the proper import, and then let's go back to our browser now. I may have to restart. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna restart this server because I think there's a lot of changes that happened. And then I'll rerun this, npm run dev. Alright, so 3001. Let me go back here, refresh. Okay, so I think I see what might be the problem if it doesn't show up. Alright, so I see what the problem is. Right here, I didn't spell opacity wrong. I didn't spell opacity right, so opacity. That's how it should be spelled, opacity. Save it. Let's go back to our page, refresh. Alright, so there we go, it works. So you just have to be very careful with the spelling. But you can see here it zooms in when it's on or in view. And as we scroll down, the next box pops up, the next one, then the next one. So you can see here as you get in view of whatever animation that we've set up, that's when the animation actually starts up. And now we can go to our About page, and this is where we can actually start doing some other animations as well. But we're going to still have the same paragraph type animation. But let's first set up a few things here. I'm going to go to my code. I'll go to About here. And what I'm going to be doing is I will just have the button or the box here. I'll grab all these boxes from the home page and put it in the About page. And I think I still need to import this, import box. And what I need to do as well is I'm going to also add after motion import, I'm going to put animate presence right there. And I'm also going to be using a use state here. So what I'll be doing here is I'm actually going to be setting up a button under the link tag. I'm going to have a button, and this button here is going to either say hide or show. So I'm going to have some sort of information in between this button. So what I'm going to be doing is, let's actually set this up first. I'm going to put the is shown use state first. Right over here between export and return, we're going to set up a constant for is shown and set is shown for the use state. And in default, it will be true. And what I'm going to be doing is, based on the on click that I set up, it's going to change and toggle between the set is shown, so is shown, and it's just going to go back and forth and toggle between it when I call the on click. So what I'll do here is now I will set up the button with that on click functionality. And I have to make sure I have those brackets with the arrow, and I'm going to call the on click the function that I set up at the top there. And once that is called, I can also put just I could put a class name here and call it button. And the about page styles new file about.module.css. I'm going to import it here at the top, about.module.css. And right here, class name, I actually have to put it as styles.button, and then I'll save that. And then right here in the styles for the about page, I will add the dot button and call it for height of 50 pixels. And based on, if I go back to the about page, in between the button, what I'll say here is, if the is shown is true, then what I'll do is I'll hide it. But if it's false, I will show it. It depends on however you want to set up the logic, but that's what I'll do here, whether or not it'll be shown or hidden. And what I'm going to be doing as well is, I do need to set up the small little blue little circle from the animation. So what I'm going to be doing is, I'm also going to set up a box animation here. So right over here, I've just set up the animation for that little box, or it'll be a circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to add an animate presence here. Animate presence. And in between here, I'm going to check to see if is shown. And in between here, or what I'm going to be doing here actually, I think I just do the closing bracket right away. I can just add the animation right away in here, 1, 2, 3. Box animation is added to this div, and I'll have a class name styles.box if I want to add any type of stylizing, and I will add some stylizing for this box. Let me see where I put it. Okay, so I'm just going to add it to the about styles for this box. It's a blue color. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to my about page. Let's actually just test it out now and see what happens. So right over here, refresh the page. You can see everything kind of like fades in nicely. So let me hide it, show, hide it. Okay, so it does work. It's showing and hiding. You can see that nice little animated effect. And as we scroll down, you can see things coming in and out. So this is actually working now. And you can always stylize it, you know, to make it look better. I'll click on home page again. And when you go back, you can see here it just starts back up again. So the only reason why it's not in the middle is I think it's because of this dot main. We just need to add it to our about CSS. I'll just add it to the top here. And then I'll save it and I'll go back. Let's go to the about page. And you can see here we got this. Okay, because that blue dot kind of pushes it down now, it kind of makes it disappear for a little bit, but you're going to have to play around with the stylizing of it. You can go hide, show, but this animation does work now. I'm going to put a link to my GitHub page as to what this code looks like so you could see it. But you could see here, this is just the button based on if it is shown, if it is true. Then right over here, it toggles it between true and false based on the click. So the click is what the button does, is on click, so it always toggles back and forth between it. And you can see here on click the not operator is there, so it's always going to change the sign. It's going to go back and forth, so it just does the opposite of whatever the value prop for is shown. So if it is true at the beginning, now with the not operator it'll be false. But if it is false and it's clicked again, then a false with another false turns to a true. So then this gets updated to a true. So this is why we want to call this is shown, because it's going to determine as well if this animate presence for that circle will show, because if it is true, then we will do this animation with the div, which is actually calling the animation property values at the top. Those 3 dots just mean add it to here. And you'll see here that this box animation is right up here. It's giving this initial animation, and opacity at first is 0, then it scales, which means it gets bigger or smaller. And then it animates, it does something on exit, so when we hide it, it will go back down, it will turn to 0 opacity, it'll take just 1 second, And the transition, it'll be like, you can play around with this, like ease out, ease in. It's just like when you do some sort of video editing, you have all these property values that you can play around with.